Things like you, it's a little slow, huh? Yeah. You went for a run this morning?
Yeah, I went for a nice run this morning. We're actually down here on vacation and got my family in town and whatnot. So I got up real early this morning, made some coffee with a sick espresso machine that my sister gave me. Yeah, but it was just steamed milk and espresso. And then went out for a run. Felt fantastic and actually was able to knock out 10.5 miles today. So technically I PR'd. Yeah, technically I PR'd in my 10 miles. So that worked out really well. So yeah, exactly. The Ryan has a tendency to beat me in most of those things, but I also had a stronger finish than you did. I did. Yeah. So anyway, welcome back for another episode of the Suffer Up podcast, where our mission is to encourage and lead others to suffer with a purpose. We strive to level up in life with an emphasis on spiritual, mental, and physical well-being. I hit the physical and the spiritual aspect today. Spent some time in my Bible this morning before my run. Got a nice run in. So now we're going to sit here and think as we interview our first guest. Our very first guest. Yeah. I want to introduce to you Miss Emily Allen. She is also part of the designer of our logo.
Boop, boop.
Yep. So Ryan and I did. I reached out to her and said, like, hey, can I use some of your IT help here? I don't know what I'm doing. I want a logo that says Suffer Up with an arrow on it. Can you do something and make it look kind of rustic? And she said, sure. So she did.
And how to convert a PDF to a PNG.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So she did that for me. There were some fine details that another fellow actually kind of tidied up for us, but she is the original designer of our logo. So we give all credit to her. She's fantastic. So
thanks.
Emily, would you mind giving us a quick introduction on who you are and your little bit of your background?
Yeah. So my name's Emily. I am Nate's sister. And I'm the youngest of 4, and he's the oldest, so we have an interesting dynamic. He was always the big protective brother growing up, which I now appreciate, even though at the time I didn't growing up.
But I was not the smart one.
I don't know.
Emily
I feel
was
like,
the smart one.
No, that would be Brady. But
yeah.
No, I had to study hard for things. But I am, late 20s, so I'm starting to experience more of the mom life now down the road of my story. But I grew up in Wisconsin. I moved to Florida for college. I wanted to get far away just to experience life independently. And I met my now husband there. And he moved to Georgia, became a police officer and later detective. And I moved to Georgia following my graduation a few years later.
What'd you go to college for, Emily?
I went to college for biology, actually. Biology ed. I'm not doing anything related to the sort now, but I did teach. I dabbled in teaching for a couple of years, taught science. And then I got out of that. I felt lack of support from admin and just a lot of politics, unfortunately, in the education world, the non-Christian sector. And I got into higher ed. So I feel very called there. I enjoy what I do. I work for a chiropractic institution and very holistic wellness and taking care of your body. And there's a lot of perks there, and I have a really great team, so couldn't be more thankful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. So we got a brief background of who you are and all that good stuff. And so you give us like a reason other than wanting to leave town. Why did you choose PCC?
I honestly grew up with no solid Christian girlfriends. And it was hard because, we were public schooled and there was a lot of influence there, a lot of temptation there. I dabbled in things I probably shouldn't have. And that's part of my testimony. So a lot of the reason why I moved down, I really wanted to learn how to be independent and on my own. And I feel like as a woman in a Christian environment, you feel a little bit more safe to do so. It's almost like a haven for you to figure out who you are, what your interests are as you grow into womanhood and really just your professional interests. So I really wanted the friendships. I wanted the Christian environment. So, and I just love the beach. So you can't go wrong for being down here, but.
Awesome. Yeah. And then I know you mentioned that your husband is in law enforcement as well. I know here at Suffer Up, with Ryan being in the military, myself being a fireman, and then you being a spouse of a police officer, do you just want to go into just like a brief kind of background on what that looks like as far as some of the daily struggles in your relationship, and then some of the things that you've had to learn as a spouse. And we'll eventually have my wife, Lauren, on here as well to talk about some of these topics. But if you just want to take a minute and just share with our listeners a little bit of kind of what are some of those, I guess, unique challenges with being a public safety spouse?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I feel that there's a misconception when it comes to being military or first responder of any sort. Being a spouse of those occupations, I think it takes a diligent wife, a faithful wife, and a trusting wife. Not just trusting in your husband, but the Lord as well. And Joshua works in a very busy area. It's Metro Atlanta, so there's high crime. They're always busy. They're always answering calls. And so he had spent about 3 or 4 years on the road. And, there's a lot of danger that comes with that. So your risks of death are much higher than any standard occupation. So there's always that fear in your mind. And there's a lot of patience that Joshua has to have with me, because if he's busy and I expect a 3 to 4 hour check-in and I don't get it, I think of the worst, essentially. Yeah. And that took a lot of patience from him and me in understanding, he has a duty to do. And as he progressed in his career, he found that he really had an interest in children's crimes, and he's really good with kids, and he really wanted to get off the road. So he then transferred to children's crimes, which is really part of our story, because I think as we grew as husband and wife and wanted children, that's always been a goal of ours. I think the cases that he was working started to really impact him. I mean, he's dealing with child molestation, he's dealing with rape, he's dealing with, sexual assault of all different kinds, psychological assault with children. And so he's seeing pretty much like the worst of people and putting them away for life. So that's not just a small feat. And it kind of plays into our story, but just being a wife that trusts that he is taking care of himself. There's a lot that I think men particularly like to bury deep down, and they don't like to express their emotions like women do.
It sounds like you have to be a very independent person, or become a very independent person, knowing that your spouse is gone a lot of the time and possibly unreachable, possibly in dangerous situations.
Yeah.
My wife used to explain it as a way of like, you kind of have to forget about them for a little bit, or like try to, because if you don't, then you just sit there and you wonder where they're at, what they're doing. Are they safe? Yeah.
And that's not healthy for you either, for the wife really. But yes. And I can think of a specific instance. Joshua was on this crazy call with an individual who was self-harming and risk of harming them. And they were pretty much in this fight with this guy. And all I get is a call from him at like 11 o'clock. And he's like, hey, I need you to bring clean pants, shower stuff, and like a clean shirt, like basically a change of clothes and some stuff to wash myself up. And I was like, okay, well, what's wrong? Like immediately I think like, is he shot? Like, is he stabbed? I don't know. And he's like, no, I just have blood all over me. And I'm like thinking of the worst possible. He hangs up and he's not explaining himself. So I'm thinking like, was he shot? Was he stabbed? I don't know. And I'm just sitting there like praying to God, because I'm like, okay, is he okay? Like, I just need to make sure that he's okay, because he's talking to me on the phone. So like, there's the logic and the emotional piece. And sometimes the emotion takes over naturally. And so I'm like rushing to the precinct, and I show up and like there's 3 guys just, covered in blood. And I'm just like, okay, you're all standing. You're all okay. This is a biohazard, but it's fine.
Yeah. I think it's easy for us to sit here and hear that story and go, well, of course he was fine. Like he just needed a change of clothes. But yeah, like you said, the emotions take over and you start to worry, and that worry turns into more worry, and it's a spiral.
Yeah, for sure.
Also with that too, I know at least in our marriage and relationship too with Lauren is like, I know a lot of times we as men, you alluded to it, we oftentimes internalize things a lot, and we don't outwardly express them. So whenever we have those moments, like a bad call, bad situation, or just work stress in general, because with public safety, anybody who's in that profession, I know there's a lot of our listeners who are, they oftentimes will just kind of internalize it, and there's a bunch of stress to perform, and you're under a microscope all the time. And especially during the period that he was kind of on the road and kind of cutting his teeth, right? Was during all the other propaganda and political movements with law enforcement, defund the police and all that. So really high stress time, not only for law enforcement, but fire, EMS, all that stuff, right? And so I think that there's a big movement that's happening right now, which I think is for the better, of public servants dealing with those things. But I would encourage anybody, tell me if you agree or disagree. You don't want to take the stress of the job home, but you also want to take, you don't want to take it home to your spouse, right? Like I didn't feel the need to want to share some of the stories and interactions I had. But at the end of the day, like the Bible says, when we become one flesh and we're married, we should be sharing some of those aspects, right? And so I think that that's a really good point of like, they are your best helpmeet. And you should share some of the things you're going through, maybe not explicit details. So one of the things that we adopted was Lauren will say, I'll tell her like, hey, had a bad call, whatever. And then she'll say, I'm sorry, do you want to talk about it? And if I say no, she respects that, And,
right. Yeah. That was
yeah. And so, but like for her too, it was one of those things. And I want you to expound on it just a little bit, and then we'll jump into our main topic of, if she knows that I went through something, she had to learn patience and ultimately give it to God and then just pray over me, essentially, to allow that to just happen. And she eventually, over time, I was more apt to share that, which is against how we as men want to behave, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost a pride thing, honestly, and recognizing emotion and being able to express it. Women are so forthcoming with that. They're so easy to talk to and talk about your feelings with. And that was something I definitely learned with Joshua. He would come home and he just didn't want to talk. And we had this unspoken rule within the first hour of him coming home. We did not talk. I would come, give him a hug, and he would just get all his gear off, take a shower, decompress, read a book, or sit outside or something. And when he was ready, he would come to me. And that was hard because I want to be the wife, or I really wanted to be the wife that he would come home and share everything with and talk about all of his feelings. And that's a great idea and want, but it's not realistic because everyone processes differently.
Yeah. And that de-stress time, whatever you want to call it, decompression time is super important. There have been times I come home and I look at Lauren and say, I need an hour of no noise because I just need a minute, especially, the really busy departments. Like you go from high stress to immediately and you have to turn it off, and we'll expound on that a lot more at a later episode, of course. But I just wanted to, since we have you here, just to be able to share a little bit of that. So tell me, the main topic or main story that we want to try to portray today is you went, or you had a miscarriage with your first pregnancy. So if you just want to just jump into kind of your pregnancy journey and just share as transparently as you'd like, kind of more your journey with child rearing.
Yeah. So timeline would be the best way to really help visualize from y'all's perspective. But we got married in 2022, Joshua and I, and we wanted to wait about a year. We just said we wanted to have our time to travel, adventure, really enjoy just being married and learn each other in different ways, because there's always that barrier crossed when you get married when it comes to, leaving the toilet seat up. That was something I had to learn. But we spent about a year and then we said, okay, let's start trying. So we had essentially just allowed for God to plan the pregnancy and not us. We weren't like trying like some people, hyperfixate on getting pregnant. It's a very deep topic, but to us at the time, we were like, well, if we get pregnant right now, or if we get pregnant a year from now, it's not a big deal. And we had tried for a while. And then it got to the point where I was like, okay, something's wrong. I have PCOS and endometriosis. So my left fallopian tube is gone. And that was a factor in the back of my mind when trying to conceive. And I didn't think that it would be an issue, per what the doctor had said. So about, I want to say 9-10 months in, I was like, okay, this isn't normal. And so I had tried different options, tried different fertility teas, all of that bougie stuff. And it definitely worked because we had gotten pregnant pretty much 2 months after I had started those. And everything looked great. We went in for the first ultrasound. We found out it was a boy. We did the early gender test. So that was exciting. And I want to be a boy mom. It's been my lifelong dream. I just see myself as a boy mom. So that was really exciting for us. Joshua was a little nervous because he's meant to be a girl dad. But it was great. And we already had a name picked out because we had been thinking and dreaming about kids for so long. I mean, we've been together almost a decade now. So lots to talk about in that time. And around 3 months, I had all the signs and symptoms of a miscarriage. I kind of already knew, I just felt different. And so I was like, I need to make a doctor's appointment. It was like right before the 12-week ultrasound, which was when it happened. And we went in, there was no heartbeat. And I feel like they took really good care of me at the time. But immediately, like, the woman feels the emotions. You know, she's the one carrying the child. So she has this bond with the infant or the baby, whether preborn or, you know, born. That's just different from a dad's bond. Not to discredit, but, you know, like when you have a physical being inside of you, it's very spiritual. It's very special. It's very emotionally rooted deep within you. And so I obviously start bawling because I'm like, I knew this was happening. And it wasn't really a shock to me. It was just the confirmation that I needed.
Did Joshua know about it when you first found out about the symptom of you possibly miscarrying?
Mm-hmm.
What did he know about that immediately? Or was that okay.
Yeah, I pretty much told him right away. I was like, I'm bleeding. There's something wrong. I feel off. And I go into panic mode and he's like, it's okay. Just make the doctor's appointment. I'll go with you tomorrow. I'll take off work, whatever time they have. That's the earliest we'll go. Don't worry about it. And he's always been good at grounding me because I'm extremely emotional and he's extremely logical. So you can see how that can play out in these types of situations and scenarios. But yeah, so we had gone in and no heartbeat. I was taken to another room. And I think what I couldn't grasp well was the doctor had basically explained, you know, this is a chromosomal thing. Sometimes, you know, a sperm matches with an egg and they're just not compatible. And my science brain is going like, well, why isn't it compatible? What did I do? And then you immediately put the blame on yourself. Like, did I, you know, cause too much stress in my life? Like, was the high cortisol an issue? Was it because of my underlying PCOS endometriosis issues? Was it my diet? Was it like what I was doing for my body to keep it healthy? And I was putting a lot of blame on myself. And unfortunately, there was no explanation from the doctor at the time. And what I didn't know, because Joshua was internalizing, was he was putting blame on him too. He's like, you know, I'm in a super high stress job. I'm not taking care of myself because I'm sleep deprived. I'm seeing these cases of X, Y, and Z that are really detrimental to my mental health. And that's when I think he started to really recognize that it was actually detrimental to his health, both mentally and physically, because he was pouring into work so much that it was almost consuming who he was. And so he was putting a lot of self-blame on himself at the same time that I was. And while I was expressing that to him, he wasn't expressing it to me. So he was sitting there reassuring me while internalizing himself, how he was feeling, and the self-guilt and the self-doubt, really. And so we had scheduled the D&C, we had the surgery. And I think what I still struggle with is we never got to see him. We didn't get to take him home. It's pretty much just like in the trash chute. And that was hard for me because, you know, he's a soul. And I think the value of human life now is so much less than if you were to experience this even just 20 years ago.
And how far along were you on?
I was about 3 months. Like I was right at the, it was like 12 weeks and 4 days. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, it was far enough along for those hormones to be running through you. And
so do you think that there's a slight disconnect with the healthcare system that we have obviously they have a job to do to tend to you physically, right? Do you feel like there's a disconnect in the healthcare system for caring for you emotionally, or do you think that your care was, adequate in that area?
Question. I feel that it's very subjective to where you are geographically. I think healthcare in the South is just far worse than what we experienced in Wisconsin. Truthfully, it's just different entirely. I would say that there was no counseling, there was no therapy. It's pretty much just let's explain the health side of it to you, and it's pretty much up to you to handle the emotions behind it. I remember my nurse better than anyone because prior to the DNC, because she held my hand and she was like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to grieve. You need to grieve. And we will get you to the other side of this hospital in labor and delivery someday. And I remember those words vividly to this day. And, a year and a half, 2 years later, I have a daughter now. So that's, a blessing. And I sent her a thank you letter from my hospital room. So.
But you bring up a really good point too, is just the power of being able to express some form of care verbally to somebody, and how, that was several years ago, or 2 years ago you said? Yeah. So 2 years ago, and those words are still there, right? So the power of you saying something, whether positive or negative, can ultimately really impact somebody. Just a small encouraging word can really carry a lot of weight there. And for those that are in healthcare that are possibly listening to this, the way that you enter the room and the way that you present yourself to the patient that's going through whatever they're going through, just the body language alone can really help portray the type of demeanor that patient needs. And so, yeah, that's all really good points.
I felt like they did a good job in the OR. I felt very well taken care of. Far different from my birth experience, unfortunately. But yeah, no, they really took care of me. They took the time to make sure that I was processing and actually allowing myself to grieve, because you're kind of in a state of shock. And I didn't feel emotionally almost as if the weight had lifted from me until after the surgery, when I was like, okay, because you're carrying a dead baby inside of you for at the time, I knew about it, and then 24 hours later I was in the OR. And that was hard for me too, because I'm just it's almost kind of you want to expel the sadness from you, and that physical piece was kind of what I needed to help with my healing. And I think it helped Joshua as well.
Yeah, it sounds like a tough dynamic where you're kind of caught between not wanting to let go of something that, has been a part of you for 3 months.
Right.
But also wanting to move on.
Yeah.
And continue that journey of grief and everything that's to come still.
Yeah.
So they don't do a funeral service or anything for the baby, for the when it's that small, I guess.
Yeah, they essentially said that hospital policy, if your infant is less than viability age, they don't allow you to essentially take your child with you, which I disagree with. I'm sure there's some federal law out there that I probably didn't know of at the time that allows you to, be able to have rights to your unborn baby. But at the time,
maybe not take it home with you, but get it to a funeral home.
Right. Yeah. At least be able to have a proper goodbye, because I think that was part of the closure that I needed that I didn't get for a while, and later had to really just rely on Christ for, because I wasn't finding it anywhere else.
All right. So then after your miscarriage, what were some steps that you and your husband took to kind of process that and then move forward? Because we really, obviously, we're faced with a trial or struggle of whatever kind. We process it, we grieve, we go through it, we handle it, and then we have to at some point move forward, right? We can't dwell on the past. Although the past does ultimately affect us, we have to move forward. So what did it look like for you guys, and how did you navigate that journey forward as you guys went through this?
Yeah. Immediately, Joshua knew I love to just spend time outside. And we had never been to a specific mountain before. So he said, I'm going to take you. We're going to go to this little coffee shop in the mountains, just go for a drive, bring the dogs, and just be outside. Because he knew that was pretty much the only thing that would kind of help ground me again. So we went on that little trip and we spent most of the time silent, I think, and just processing. And I felt a little bit more clear-headed, but I think the difficult part of the process was people didn't want to burden me. So they reached out to Joshua. And Joshua is very much like, I don't want to talk about my feelings. And he's since changed. He'll talk about that with me now, because it's a weird bonding experience that you have as a married couple when you go through that type of tragedy, whether it's a miscarriage, whether there's, death involved of any sort. I mean, it really bonds you. And I think that that's what we needed at the time, truthfully, to help him open up and to help him recognize that it's okay to share how you feel and to even recognize those emotions in general.
I've had conversations with people about, they go through something, whatever it is, and that it's hard to find any form of hope during those times. But I think, and I try to give a word of encouragement of like, I can't talk to somebody about losing a child because I've never been through it. So now you and your husband have been given a unique opportunity to be able to now share, like you're doing right now, be able to share with those who might be going through it right now, or could potentially down the road go through the same exact thing. So you have a unique mission field essentially to be able to share some form or glimpse of hope, even though like the pain never goes away, right? But it's always there. But then navigating it each and every way that you can is ultimately going to allow you to have a bigger impact on this world.
Like a secret little special gift that you get in the midst of all this sorrow and suffering.
Yeah. I see it kind of as like witnessing to someone. If you were to go up to a Muslim, for example, if you didn't know anything about their faith, how are they going to want to listen to you? Why would they listen to you? It's kind of like the relatability is such a huge component to reaching people. And I think there's really a uniqueness to miscarriage, even though it's tragic, because no matter how far along you are, your pain matters. And you still had a human being, a soul inside of you. And I think because of the, devaluing of human life, people they would tell me, well, at least you're only in your first trimester. Or, well, the fun part is you get to try again. And I'm like, that's not helpful.
As if those things matter or make it easier. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that your feelings are valid no matter what you feel, whether it's for some people, it's just deep sadness. And some people don't really get affected by it. I've had 2 girlfriends now that have gone through miscarriage and they each have processed it differently. And I think a lot of that just depends on your rootedness in Christ, your valuing of human life, and really how badly you wanted it. Like that was my lifelong dream, is to be a mom. I know I've always wanted to be a mom. I love children. I love babies. I've always wanted to.
And especially a boy mom when you find that out.
Yeah. And I think that when it comes to processing the grief, we all handle it differently. And that's the uniqueness of humanity. That's the uniqueness of each soul that walks this earth. And for me, I think the biggest help was I needed my time of isolation to really process how I was feeling. But then I also needed the validation that how I was feeling was okay.
Yeah. Do you feel like that validation was harder to get than if you would have lost, a 3-year-old child or something? Like you feel like people were less likely to say, how you doing, or check in on you even a month after, 2 months after? Initially everybody cares, but a 1-year anniversary, you think that people were less likely to give you a call because, it was just an unborn baby.
Yeah. I think my immediate community was what got me through, because they all remembered his due date and they remembered, his name, and they recognized that what I was going through was real. And the fact that they supported me so deeply and so much, especially Nate's wife, I probably wouldn't have gotten through without Lauren, to be honest. I think that was the validation I needed, just because it's coming from my community and they recognize, he was real. Even though we didn't get to see him in person, he still existed. He was real. He was there. And we still had that connection.
No, that's good. I think it's important that you surround yourself with people that view life the same as you do. Yeah. Not so much politics or anything like that, but your fundamental spiritual beliefs and how valuable life is. Because when things like this happen, those people are going to be there and understand what you're going through and be in your corner for the long haul.
Yeah. And I think back to Lauren had given me a book, Nate's wife, and she is an angel. I still have
she's
I still have yet to find a flaw in her. So, but she had given me a book. It's called Dark Clouds, Deep Mercy. And it pretty much just talks about lamentations and lament and the importance of lamenting. And I was like, lament. I've never heard that word, but it sounds like lamentations because, synonymous. But essentially the book immediately goes into this pastor talking about these women that were struggling with infertility. So immediately I'm like relating to this book and crying out to God through the process, because that was pretty much the only thing that I felt I could do to really express the anger that I had in me. And I felt that was the only healthy way. And I think when you go through the fertility struggle, you're always thinking, me. I want a child. I want a family. I want this. This is what we want. And God's like, okay, calm down, patience, Emily. And through that process, really, it was more or less focusing on God. So then that kind of put me down this spiral into focusing on affirmations of the Lord. My friend Ashley had given me a journal that you could write in, and it focuses on, you get to pick essentially each affirmation of God. And so I had started in January for the year 2024, and I had gone through, I'm trying to remember what they were. I have them written down, but it was basically like long suffering of God, God's strength, God's faithfulness, and just focusing on something different each month was essentially what I needed to heal from that. But little did I know, when I was just solely focusing on Christ and delving into his word, it turned into, oh, you're pregnant again. And that was something that we weren't planning. We were just kind of trying to heal and live our lives. And so during that time, there was just unplanned pregnancy news. And we were like, how is this possible? We literally just got over a miscarriage. It takes time for your body to go through the hormones because essentially you're experiencing postpartum. And we had gotten pregnant without realizing it. It was just a total surprise. We found out she was a girl, and now we have her. Yep. Healthy little Elowen. And through that time of healing, I think I felt a lot of guilt almost, because I'm like, I want to be happy about this pregnancy, but I'm still trying to grieve Theo. And that was hard, I think, more so for me than Joshua, because Joshua was thinking, okay, girl dad mode, like this is great, And I might be destined to be a girl mom just because of what Joshua keeps telling me, but we'll see down the road if I'm blessed with a boy someday. But it was interesting because Joshua was getting all of these calls, all of these messages, and I was getting none. And I feel like even though I needed my time alone, I needed my silence and separation from everything just to like be and exist and find peace, he was getting bombarded from like everyone. And he's kind of like roles reversed. I'm the one who needs the chatting and working through my emotions. And he's like, literally leave me alone, because he didn't know how to feel, And I think that was a moment in our marriage that he finally opened up to me in a way that was so deeply rooted in spirituality versus just, yep, this happened, move on.
Yeah, I want to go back just a little bit. You were talking about having a trend for each month as scripture readings or affirmations. Yeah. So when you're going through those, did you feel like it was easier for you to process things when they were each day at a time, right? And so obviously it's a process. You've already alluded that it's extremely normal to go through this process. Just like with anything in life, we have to go through some form of a process. So with each day and each affirmation, obviously you were face this mountain of something to get over. And then by you processing daily, one step at a time, you found that it helped. But what was it that really, I mean, you were trusting each and every day to get through these challenges, right? And then you found out you were pregnant. So it was everything in God's timing, right? So what was it that really kind of helped you get through the concept of like everything takes time? Does that make sense? Like what if everything takes a little bit of time, the time that you're spending with in God's word and figuring out what is that next step, like all those types of things, like how did you navigate that to where you could move forward? I mean, obviously, you found out you were pregnant again, like that's an easy answer, but for somebody who maybe isn't, like doesn't have that hope, like, oh wow, we're pregnant now, I can now, never forgetting the loss of that child, but then
I feel like you have to, I think I get what you're saying. For me, I think completely, I know it sounds bad, but it was almost like a distraction technique for me, being able to just completely separate what my wants were and what I thought what my needs were at the time, being able to completely distract myself from that, push it away and just focus upward. I mean, literally you're looking up to God saying, I clearly need patience. I clearly need healing, but how do I get there? And for me, it was just, let me focus on what he has versus what I need. And a lot of that came with the affirmations of the Lord, which if you really think about it, you can write about affirmations of who God is all day long. They're infinite. And it wasn't hard for me to come up with them. But by focusing on that, I think it helped me just, it almost made me focus upward and then move upward emotionally, if that makes sense.
I think it was probably less distraction and more refocusing. You weren't trying to distract from that. That happened. And distraction isn't necessarily a healthy thing to do, where you're trying to not think about it. You were trying to focus on the good, focus on the goodness of God.
Yeah.
And trust in him that everything happens for a reason, that he has a perfect plan for your life, and that, he's going to make sunshine out of this terrible thing.
Yeah. And that patience is not a strong suit of mine. Nate knows that all too well growing up. Yeah.
So you really refocused on him by doing those affirmations.
Yeah.
So now that we kind of have a good understanding of what you went through, some processes that you did to help you get through the struggle that you had, both obviously physical was a huge portion of that, and healing, and then obviously your mind, your well-being, your just overall health is just completely jarred, right? So there's kind of two questions that I want to try to cover. Is we'll start with what did you end up doing to kind of help heal now that you have a daughter? What were some things that you did to try to help heal your just overall well-being?
Yeah. I think for me, it was just physical objects that would help me and Joshua and others even recognize, yes, he existed. He was here. And that we lost him. And not only that, but the verbal almost affirmation, I guess, that you could say, talking about it, like still remembering like your daughter will still color things for Theo, and that's really cute. And sharing that with the family. And I know mom and dad took it pretty hard too, and they went through their own grieving process. But for me,
it's like you had a community there too, which obviously was huge, right? Like the whole principle of like surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded and are able to help encourage you. And those are all like really good. But was there something that you tried to do to help really heal that? Or was it just something that will just always kind of be there that just kind of festers?
Yeah, I think time was really what I needed, because our timeline of processing and grieving is all different. Even though it never really goes away, you are still processing it in your own way. And I think for Joshua, it was pretty slow, and then it kind of hit him harder later. He was so focused on helping me grieve physically because I'm going through all the postpartum things, but with no baby. And he was able to, focus on me because he is a good servant, truthfully. But then there was never any recognition for him, and it hit him later, I think. And while I was kind of on my healing journey, he got hit pretty hard later down the road. And it started to affect his work. He was in child crime, so he was seeing all of those things, and he was like, I can't. This is obviously taking a toll on my health mentally and emotionally. And for me, it kind of hit harder for me later too, to be honest. It's weird. It comes in waves, and that's something that your wife told me. She was like, grief will hit in waves. You'll be totally fine, and then the next minute you'll feel horrible, and you'll see the most minute thing and then just immediately think like, oh, I wonder who Theo would have become. What would he look like? What would his interests be? Would he be a musician? Would he be a doctor? And you're thinking of all the what ifs, and that did hit me on and off. And in seeing Elowen, my now daughter, it was almost like guilt because I wanted to bond with her and enjoy her. But then I also was like, I could be doing this with Theo.
I think you brought up an interesting point there about your husband and how it kind of hit him way later than you. I think that's a very common thing, especially in the public service community of guys who just want to help and serve others, that when something bad happens, even if it's to them, they still want to help other people. I mean, just last year when Hurricane Helene hit Western North Carolina, I know a guy who lost his whole house in that event. He was a police officer up there. He lost his whole house, all his stuff. And the only thing that he wanted to do was go out on the road and go help other people in the community. He just wanted to stay on shift like 24/7. I think part of that was a distraction to him. He didn't have anywhere to go home to. But I think the public service people just really focus on helping others and suppressing those emotions for as long as they possibly can. So what advice do you have for dads or husbands in these situations where, they may be, their natural instinct may be to suppress it and just, I'm going to focus on other people. What do you have to tell them?
Yeah. I think Joshua really just dove into his work, which festered into later stomach ulcers from the stress. And being able to, as a wife, tell your husband, which I wish I would have recognized it at the time, but I was also like out of sorts emotionally. But I wish he would have just taken the time to just be alone or be around his guys or whatever it is, and just be and not have to think about anything heavy, and just be able to have the peace and almost quiet to process how you're feeling. I think when men become busier because they're providers, they're leaders, right? And the integrity comes in where they're like, I can't just stop what I'm doing because of this. And that was something Joshua told me. He said, I can't just not attend court. The judge doesn't care. Just because we went through this, like I have a serial rapist to put away. And it was hard for me because I'm sitting here like, but how you feel matters. And that was something that we almost argued about because he just wanted to dive back into the work. And
it's hard to turn it off.
Yeah. And I didn't recognize at the time, like, I think he just needs to just fully remove himself from everything that causes him stress and just be for whatever time that is, whether it's a week or a day. And he never really got that. He immediately went back to work. He didn't really have time to process it. And then it kind of hit him like a ton of bricks later. And that's not helpful. So I think men just really need to take space, take time, and recognize that, like, yes, they just went through something traumatic.
What did that look like when it finally did all hit him?
I mean, it was hard because he was dealing with child deaths and such through his work. So it kind of hit home. And I don't think he fully opened up and broke down to me until around the time of Christmas, when he had given me a ring and it had like Theo's birthstone on it, because he knew that was a tradition I wanted. And we later found out like, oh, our due date's October. And it's an opal, which was on the ring that he gave me with Theo's birthstone on it. So it was kind of like a cool God moment, but also he just had sat there and his eyes got like teary and he was like, wow, I didn't realize. And I was like, well, I didn't either. Obviously this pregnancy is a surprise and we had gotten pregnant like in January. So it was later on, but around like that Christmas time, he had given me the ring. And I think that's when he had opened up a little bit more to his family about how he was feeling because they're his comfort place. And he did get a little teary eyed. I've only seen him cry once. It was at our wedding and it was not for me. It was for his brother. But, I think that almost like clicked in his brain as an acknowledgement that yes, it happened. And yes, it was bad, but we're going to move forward. And we're going to do everything that we can possibly do to create life in a new, meaningful way. And it makes you appreciate your future children more because there's that hope in there. And it was almost like, okay, now we have hope. I can look back and be like, okay, that actually sucked that we went through that. It was kind of like a transition moment for him.
But I mean, being your older brother and then watching you two go through it remotely, of course, but seeing you guys go through it, I would say that, things happen for a reason. Even though right now, while we're on this earth, we don't know why they're happening, but we do know that there is a God that loves us and we know that he cares about us. And although these things, people oftentimes will doubt God into seasons like this, but during those seasons, there's a lot of growth that can happen as long as I would give you guys kudos for the steps you guys did take. And turning to God, because a lot of people turn away from God in those seasons and not look to him. But there's a lot of growth that will happen. There's tons of tragedies you look back in the Bible, and then through that, they're still able to honor and praise God through it. So amazing testimony as far as how you guys handled it. And watching you two, I think you two are stronger now than you were before.
I think sadly, we needed it to make our marriage as strong as it is now. But at the same time, patience is not a strong suit of mine. So a lot of it is waiting. You think back to biblical times and there were people who waited 30, 40 years for God to answer their prayer. And I'm like, well, thankfully I didn't have to endure 30 to 40 years of waiting, but
I think it's really cool that we're recording this podcast today. Yesterday was Good Friday, marking the anniversary of Jesus' suffering on the cross. And it's just a good time to look back and remember that Jesus felt your pain. He felt all the pain that day. And
to think of Mary, as a mother, like, and just having those flashbacks, like as a parent, you guys, I'm sure have had those flashbacks to when Lexi was holding her hands together like a cute little angel and giggling for the first time and calling you dad for the first time. And just thinking like, imagining her thinking back to baby Jesus and seeing him laugh and smile for the first time and all of those things that flood back, it just intensifies the feeling of pain that Mary experienced as a mother, but knowing the physical pain that Christ endured as well.
Yeah. And the amazing part is that tomorrow is Easter, and that's the part that makes it all worth it. But of course, she didn't truly know that at the time. Jesus had said that he would come back, but it'd be hard to sit there and watch your child suffer like that and keep the faith, keep the hope.
I saw a video of it was just like a graphic on social media, and it was from one of the Christian groups I follow, and it talked about how Jesus removed his face cloth and folded it a certain way, which was a custom to saying, I'm not finished eating, I'm coming back, which they used to do. They crinkle their napkin or their cloth up to let people know I'm done. And his was folded. Yeah. It's so significant. All the little intricacies that you find out about the Bible that just make perfect sense. I love it.
It's amazing. We're thankful for you and you getting on here with us and sharing your story and how you guys navigated the loss of a child. And we're super thankful that you're willing to exploit all of your inner feelings, if you will. And we're super thankful for who you and your husband are. And we are just overly blessed and thankful to be able to have this opportunity to talk about it. And we really hope that this episode will reach those who are going through something similar. And if not, maybe a new couple, if they listen to this and if they find themselves going through this, then, they're more well equipped to process and handle it.
Yeah, just remember, guys, that this Suffer Up movement is about more than just trying to level up your spiritual, mental, and physical well-being. We really want this to be a movement, a community movement where we can provide resources for one another to connect and help each other grow through these things. You're not meant to do this alone. You need other people in your corner, and you need other people that have been through these things before. So, share this with someone, reach out, and if you know somebody who's gone through something like this, give them this tool. Hopefully this is helpful to them. And
that's a really good point. And we also want to encourage you guys to reach out to us. If there's a topic or anything that you guys really want to hear, or if you have any sort of idea for guest speakers or anything like that, we would love to hear their story and be able to exploit it and be able to really kind of share more of what they went through and all that good stuff. So, Emily, thank you so much for getting on here with us.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
We also just want to take a moment too and thank our sponsors with Sofsocs. They make a compression toe sock that is form-fitting to your foot. And they have been awesome for blister prevention as well as good support of the foot. You can check them out via our Linktree app that will be in the bio. If you click on it, we also are able to announce now that we have a discount code, which will be Suffer10 to get 10% off of your pair of socks. Please click on the Linktree and get on there. Check their website out. They're locally owned here in the Panhandle of Florida and just really, really good people. And we're super thankful to be partnered with them. They've really helped my foot with my aches and pains of my feet. And I wore them this morning on the 10.5 mile run, and it felt amazing on those. And I will not be wearing any other socks other than those. I can honestly say that. And please check them out and get you a pair of socks. Just use our discount code to save you a couple extra bucks. Thanks again for tuning in to this episode of Suffer Up with Emily. And we look forward to reaching out to you guys again some more with some more good related content. Hope you guys have a good rest of your week, and we'll get you on the next episode.